people approach you and they're like, hey, I got a product idea. What's the first thing that you would recommend? Like they want to launch and they don't know where to get started.
What I will say is first and foremost,
so Joey, welcome to the show. It's a real pleasure to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate being here. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah. So I love getting the show started off by having our guests just sort of paint the picture for the listeners. Tell us a little bit about what it was like being Joey growing up, how you got to where you are today, and whether you had any entrepreneurial ventures maybe along the way or family members who are entrepreneurs. And yeah, just sort of let us know what that was like for you.
Yeah, I imagine I'm similar to a ton of entrepreneurs in certain ways and then different in others. But for myself, I was one of those kids that I always thought I would do business, always. Elementary school, selling candy. Middle school, I had my own lottery. That didn't go well with the principal. And then all the way through high school. I mean, if you look back in some of those yearbooks, when they ask you, like, what are you going to be when you grow up? I mean, there's a clip somewhere in one of these yearbooks where it says, I'll own my own business in 5 years. So, it's always something that I thought was a part of me. Growing up, though, my brothers and I, we had a little bit of a couple of hiccups along the way. Lost my mom when I was 16, essentially started that process when I was 15, moved in with my brother. Essentially, it was a bunch of kids living in a house with no adult supervision. And everything, even leading up to that point, super rocky. And so when it came down to actually thinking about future, I was like, all right, I've told myself and sort of committed emotionally to business, and I'm going to one day own my own business. But when it really came down to it, you're talking college, and now I have to make a decision. I chose nursing, and I chose it because some of my friends growing up, you go over to their houses and they live in these, to me, huge, big houses. They've always got food in the cupboard. It was something about it. And then you ask them, what's your mom and dad do? Or like, mom's a nurse, or, and I heard that a lot and saw it a lot within my friends. And so when it came down to it, I was like, man, I know nursing's secure. I know what it can provide. It's super clear what an annual income looks like. And so I deferred this whole business thing of mine and went that route for its security. Now, with that being said, I couldn't shake it. Probably, again, like a lot of entrepreneurs, I couldn't shake it. I mean, I was starting random businesses while a nurse, fresh new nurse on the floor. I'd come home late hours or early morning. And I mean, I was trying to start sports drinks, energy drinks. At one point, my brothers and I built a whole web app and mobile app for the Port of Oakland because we're in the Bay Area here. And so with that, it was like, I couldn't shake this entrepreneurial thing. Though it wasn't until I ran into my business partner now, Tofiki Gofar Shaner. He was trying to do something in the medical field. And I was like, well, wait a second. I've been trying to do this separate of healthcare. And in my, I don't know why, in my mind, for some reason, it was always split down the middle. And I was going to start a business and then one day leave nursing. Never thought to combine the two. And so that's kind of how we got to this point now, at least for myself and my independent entrepreneurial journey. Ton of stuff along the way, but that's really where we landed was me meeting a guy who was already trying to do it. And I was like, silly me. How could I not have figured that out on my own? But it is what it is. So
awesome. So how did you guys end up meeting?
So I was float pool. I med surge, adult acute care in a hospital. I was float pool whenever we were in the hospital. I was floated to this guy's unit, or he might have even been floating to a different unit that same night. Long story short is I saw him wearing a smartwatch, and I was already looking at smartwatches like, which one do I get? And so I asked him, I said, hey, how do you like your watch, kind of thing. Next thing you know, we're talking about all the reasons why healthcare needs to be improved. Why is it that you step into a hospital, you're going 10 years back? When I can walk home, I can get home and my lights turn on for me, my car turns on, when was healthcare going to catch up was our big beef that night. And we shared it intimately with each other. And next thing you know, in the morning is when he was like, hey, so 12 hour, or I think I worked 8, he might've worked 12, but regardless in the morning, he's like, hey, I've been trying to solve this problem. You kind of sound like you got the same motivation and passion. Would you mind looking at it? And he was trying to solve essentially what we have now for the previous 6 months. And so he let me on board. we kind of looked at the problem, started over, and that's how him and I kind of got moving with what we do in the product that we currently sell.
Awesome. So I love how, he had spotted a problem and created something, or started to create something, or had an idea about creating something. And that's really like the foundation of entrepreneurship, right? Like it's finding a problem in the market, finding a need in the market, a pain point in the market, and then creating that solution and hopefully having a good product market fit. So you're solving a problem that's big enough of a problem that people are willing to pay for your product or service. So that's awesome that you guys were able to figure that out. When you were doing your other businesses or thinking about your other businesses, were you also thinking about creating a solution to a problem? Did you have that mindset back then? I feel like I know I didn't when I was a brand new entrepreneur. I was just like, what's cool that I can make that can, earn some decent money. And it was less of a problem focused creation back when I got started. How about you?
Yeah, I'd say both. Honestly, there's random ideas I'll get out of nowhere where it's purely just like, this would be cool, this would be fun, but it's not about, I don't need to make $1 off of it. One example of that is I invented my own Bluetooth fuzzy dice speakers that hang from because I have a classic 67 Chevelle. And all I want to do was solve that one problem without having to install an aftermarket stereo. So anyway, so it's like things like that. Like I don't need to make a ton of money, but I just want to, it's that drive to solve a problem. But then there's been plenty of other times where I'm like, well, is this viable? Can I actually do something with it? Can I make a business out of it? And I think actually the beauty of those two things is, at least leading up to my journey before meeting him, really provided a ton of insight when him and I really got down to it and started putting things on paper. It wasn't just solving a problem. It was like, well, wait a second, this can be real. This can be viable. And, and so that I think both, and I appreciate both wholeheartedly. It's super fun to just come up with cool ideas, but it's also really cool. And I like the challenge of seeing if you can make something scale.
Yeah, love it. I remember way back in high school, one of my first things was, I used to hate downloading all of the individual songs and then putting them onto an MP3. And I hated buying all the different CDs that you needed to get the collection of songs that you wanted. So I actually I was one of the first in my high school that had the CD burners. So I would take the CD burners, download everybody's custom compilation. I started with just myself, and then my friends were like, "Hey, I want one of those. I'll give you $15 if you make me a custom CD." So that was my first business, just sort of solving my own inconvenience, and then it kind of skyrocketed into like a little mini side hustle. For a high schooler, it was making me some pretty good cash on the side. It wasn't legal. I didn't know that at the time, but that's how it is. When it comes to making a product, products are challenging, right? You have to create prototypes. You have to get patents. You have to do a lot of things that you may not have to do if you're creating like a service, or if you're creating a digital product. Physical products have some unique challenges. So what were some of those that you've had to face and overcome?
Yeah, honestly, man, we got so lucky with what we were attempting to solve. And I say that because looking back at seeing other people wanting to solve a problem, because there's so many steps. If you don't know, you don't know. So ignorance is bliss, right? And so we kind of sought out on this journey with just literally putting one foot in front of the other. Let's do this. It turned out that what we were attempting to accomplish and the product we were making was super low maintenance when it came to FDA. When there was no patent for what we were doing. And so a lot of entrepreneurs and inventors end up spending so much time and effort, and they're realizing like this isn't a viable product, or it's going to cost me more to make it than I can sell it for. So I'll just say that up front. With that though, I mean, we had to figure this stuff out as we went. Again, fortunately, I had tried to do so many different random businesses that I had already at least explored some of these things. Like I've explored the patent process. I had read a few books on it, and I had, so that helped. Not going in completely blind, but also failing so many times did also help. When you hit a wall, knowing like, yeah, you're going to hit walls. That's actually expected. And so, but product specifically, we just got super lucky, and the materials we found were available and at cost. And again, because so many people run into, it could be flat out that, like you're trying to build something, Jason, and all of a sudden you realize the material you need to build it isn't available, and now you've hit a wall. So there's just so many things that we could have hit walls on, and we somehow, some way didn't on a lot of these things. And so being humble in that regard is that this isn't normal to have some of the success we've had, especially in products, in the product world. We got our patent approved, essentially first try, second try, to be honest. We had to do a couple revisions, where some people take 5 years to finally rewrite a patent, and even then, and maybe you'll never get it. So those are some of the things at least we're thankful for, but pose a ton of challenges for people in the product industry.
Yeah. I love how you said ignorance is bliss, because sometimes it is. Sometimes not knowing what you don't know is actually an advantage, because what other people may know may sort of make them pump the brakes, because they're like, oh no, I can't do it. There's too many steps, too many hurdles. But if you just go and just like blunt force it step by step, tackling each thing that you got to do along the way, because you don't know what you got to do next, then I think that's just an awesome scenario, and that's how some really cool things get created, actually, which is great.
There's a balance. There's a healthy balance of even if you know more than most, there's still a healthy balance of knowing when to continue and pursue, because there's things you're not going to know as an entrepreneur. You'll never know until you've done them, but you just don't know. And then there's other things later down the road you have to deal with it, but there's this balance of knowing when not to let that weigh you down, because you're just trying to take the next few steps. You'll get there. You will. But a lot of folks will give up early because they're looking at they're looking at Z when they need to be looking at A, B, and C. But they get Z sounds so far out there that they're like, no, thank you. Like, I can never get this done. But you can if you literally just focus on the next couple steps, go from A to B, then from B to C, and don't worry about X, Y, Z yet,